I'm supposed to make this. I was going to put this in the last video, but I still want to put it out there. Don't watch it. Anyways, so God. If you're speaking to a Muslim, Jesus is God. Like, he literally says he's God throughout the Bible. He uses terms for God for himself, the first and the last, Alpha and Omega, the I am, and then, other things, like the rock. I want to say that's one of the things, like the rock of stumbling. I don't know, there's all these other things. But also, he's omnipresent, omniscient, and omnipotent. Throughout the Gospels, he is all of those. Allah is not any of those. He's not omniscient. He does not know everything. If he knew everything, surely he could have known how to save his gospel, his gospel that seemed to have been corrupted and all these things. He's not omnipresent. He's not everywhere. Ask a Muslim, have you ever experienced God? No. Which is another problem I've had with Muslims. I don't think I have put this in a video. So when Muslims don't experience God, when they don't hear from God, they don't experience him, what are they supposed to tell themselves? Well, Muhammad has the answer. He's the last person who was able to talk to God. Like, you can't talk to God. Like, the only way to talk to the actual God is going through Jesus. Sure, sometimes he'll talk to you before you believe in Jesus to get you to believe in Jesus. Maybe if you are going to believe in Jesus in the future, he maybe even talk to you before then as he, prepares you or saves you and whatnot, because you're his child since the beginning, you were born, or whatever. But anyways, for all intents and purposes, you have to go through Jesus. So when you don't hear from him, because you can't, because Satan knows how God works, and knows, God's... So when people are going to ask, why can't I hear from God? Why can't I experience God? Muhammad's answer is, I'm the last. I'm the last and final prophet of God. I'm the last person who will ever hear from God. So, that's another problem I have with that. Muslims, they don't hear from God. Some just don't see him, but that's a concept throughout anywhere. But, when you don't hear from God, it's because Muhammad was the last person who could hear from God. You could, experience God. I don't know how Muslims experience God, but basically, you can't really... He doesn't want a relationship with you. He doesn't want to talk to you. So anyways, I'm getting off the point I wanted to make. Omnipresent, omniscient, omnipotent. Allah didn't have the power to stop all this corruption from going on. He didn't know it was going to be corrupted, apparently. And he's not everywhere. He's not with you. Jesus, on the other hand, I guess that's the point I'll make right now. Jesus is everywhere. Jesus said he'd be everywhere. He can be in anyone at any time. He tells people, hey, if you want to obey my commands, me and my Father will come and make our home with you. So Jesus can be anywhere in the world at any time. And he told people while he was on earth, hey, I'm omnipresent. I can be anywhere at any time, with anyone, anywhere, anytime. Jesus is omnipresent. God. Omniscient. He knows everything. He knows what people are thinking. Throughout his ministry, he was like, I knew what they were thinking, and then told them what they were thinking, formulated responses. To another thing about the all-knowing / omnipresent, he knew Nathaniel, I think Nathaniel, he knew he was under the fig tree, which apparently Nathaniel knew only God would be able to know that. It was, early in the morning, out in the middle of nowhere. He knew that he saw no one saw him. He was all alone. He's like, oh, if you saw me under the fig tree, you're God. You are the Christ. I believe. And Jesus is like, oh, you believe just because I said your finger. I'll show you many other things, even greater, more than those. Anyways, God is omnipresent, all-powerful, and everywhere. Through those things, he knew everything. And then omnipotent. He had power over the winds, the waters, sickness, disease, even death. He raised the dead, and he raised him. Well, God raised himself. He has power over death, sickness, disease, winds, rain. I guess he didn't really necessarily reign. He has power over rains, which is another thing. The Old Testament says, if you disobey my commands, I will send you madness. Even pestilences, sickness, disease. Probably getting the words wrong, but the basic idea is also he can send famine. He can send droughts. And today I just read an article that was like, hey, our response to famine it's failing. I guess that's the literal word. It's failing. It's not working. Our response to famine. And then it talks about, the specific areas of the famine are these areas of conflict. Okay, I guess it's safe to assume this conflict of these people, they're not following God. I mean, sure, I don't know if there's still some people who are, but anyways, they're probably not following God. There's famine all over the regions. If they would just turn to God, repent from their sins, stop all this conflict among all the other sins they're probably committing, turn to God, there wouldn't be famine in that land. We don't need FEMA and all these other relief programs to help try to do this thing that apparently we're failing to do. We just need to obey God, and he'll make sure there's no famine. God has that power. Anyways, back to Jesus. He has power. He does have power over the rains, but as far as what's recorded, he has power over the winds, sickness, disease, death. He has the power to forgive sins, which is another thing. Only Allah would probably be able to do that. Jesus says, I can't forgive sins. Jews were like, oh, only God can forgive sins. He forgave sins. He has power over all these things, power to do all these things. He's all-powerful, all-present, all-knowing. All throughout the Gospels, he literally is God. The one thing that apparently he didn't know, which back to the point I was talking with the Muslims, he was like, why isn't God an open book? Well, Jesus actually literally said that he is an open book. He said, everything that my Father has taught me, I have taught you. Everything I know, I have shared with you all. Everything my Father taught me, I have taught you all. He wanted to be open about everything. When the Jews came to him and they were like, hey, what are you teaching? He was like, what do you mean, what am I been teaching? I've been teaching in your synagogues openly all this time. You all know everything I've been teaching. I haven't done anything in secret. He showed everyone, I have been open. I haven't done anything in secret. Everything I know, you now know. One of the things the Muslims say is, well, if God knows everything, why doesn't he know the day or the hour? It's because he wanted to be an open book. He wanted to tell you literally everything he knows, you all now know. One thing that we cannot know is the day or the hour. That would have great ramifications for us if we know the specific day or hour of his coming and all that stuff. So he chose not to know that so that he could still tell you all, hey, everything I know, everything I've taught, I have taught you. He withheld that one single bit of information from himself so that he could literally say, I am an open book. I have not done anything in secret. I have not kept any secrets from you. Everything I know, you now know. And that's the reason why Jesus is God, and you can have peace in the Middle East if you can just convince Muslims of this fact.